Okay, yeah, it's nice having you here, and I'm here to start from where we stop. I told you before you could get started about React project, before you could have all these templates, the first thing in which you have to do is use by using npx create React app, something like this. Npx create create React app. Then the name of the app, maybe my folder. So once you type this line of code uh, in your terminal, a terminal like this, once you type that in your terminal like this, you type npx create React app, and you always make sure the internet is on. Then you have to use npm start. So once you click on npm start, it's going to run it, and it's going to provide you a local host like this, localhost 3000. So when you click on that localhost 3000, or you check your browser, it's going to open it on your default browser. Once you open your default browser, once it opens your default browser, you are going to see something like this. This is the first page of React. So now I've talked about some of those things, and if you have been reading some other things about it, so I'm starting with a component, because I think I've explained this render method, which is GSS that allow us to write React applications, etc. I think I've talked about all those things. So I'm starting with a React component. See, React component, before this React class component, there is a React component. React can be written in two ways. It can be written in a functional component, or a class component. Now, what do I mean by a functional component, and how do we write a class component, which are the two components in which we have? So this is how it works. I told you you'll be doing most of your work in this source folder, and it will be connected to this app.js, which is the root folder, and it is displayed inside this html.index.html. So for now, let me create a folder called, let me create a file called components.js. So, and also make sure that the first letter always starts with capital letter. Component. Okay, let me use compo.jxx. That is extensions for JavaScript. Now, there are two things. Is either you write a functional component, or you write a class component. If you want to write a class component, if I type R in this place, RCC, you can see there is a shortcut from my own laptop. If I type RCC, for you to have that thing, if you come to this place, this extension, you are going to search for EX7 plus React / Redux / React Native. So when you download that thing in your VS Code, you are going to have a shortcut template. You are going to have a shortcut template for anything, maybe React component, React class component, or a functional component. So that is the dependency EX7 plus Redux. You just come to this place, it's going to bring out a search button. If you type just 23, it's going to bring out the rest for you. So once you do it, let me click on this. Now you can see it has written a React class component, but looking at it now, you can see that it is much, and it has been, anytime in some places they have included the default here, but when you see some people working, the export is always under here. The export, some React used to put it under here like this. They used to put it under here. Some people used to put it under here like this, and that export default is the same thing. So let's test it out. Let's put it inside. Oh, I don't need this index.js, so I need this app.js. So for first and foremost, this is my app.js. And this is what my app.js is displaying. So I want to take away all this, so I'll be able to write my code. So let me just do like this. Let me take away every damn thing inside it. Let me delete it. And which one is imported at the top? Okay, I don't need this logo again because I'm not using it. Okay, let me leave it this way. I want to keep it clean and nice. This header too, I don't need it because I'll be putting my own. So let me take away this div. So anything style. So if I check now, I should see an empty space. Everything should be empty by now. So there's nothing on it. So now I've created the file. I've created another file, which is compo. So this is a class component, and I want to render it in my JSS file. There are ways in which we have to use to render. Number one, you have to import this compo, this file, inside this place. How do we import it? The way this one is imported. So you are going to use import compo from ./compo. So inside this place, I can now call this function now. That is, I can create a self-closing tag inside it. Compo is either you write it this way, self-closing tag, or you write it this way. Either of the two. So once I'm able to have this, if I check, you can see I have my compo. So now, instead of working on this app.js, I can keep on working on this compo here. I can say compo hello learning React. So I can easily add it there. So once I refresh, you can see it's there once and for all. So we can keep on adding around a lot of things. One, we just have to render it here. So one of the good benefits of using React function and component, it is that it is reusable. That is the benefit. So if I want to reuse this thing again in a second line, if I copy and paste it multiple times and I check, I'm still going to see it in multiple times. It's going to render it the way it is. So that is how to make use of our React component. So now that is the essence of using React component. But if you look at it here now, I'm making use of a class component because it started with a class. Let's assume I want to make use of a functional component. I don't want to clean away this. So I want to tell you so you can know that, oh, this thing is the same thing. So I want to make use of a class. I want to make use of a functional component. This one used to have classes to have render functions, etc., and a lot at the top. But when you are to use functional component is always more neat. It doesn't has a lot of things. It only has React from React, function compo, and return the function. So inside this place now, let me put this there, and let me check again. You can see still the same thing. It doesn't alter anything. If I come to this my app.js and I copy it multiple times, we can still have same thing here. So that is how to make use of functional component and class component. So it all depends. And like this functional component, even though I take this away here, like the way it used to be, and I had it in front of it here, then I take this away, like the way you see for class component the other time. So, and I try to run, you can see nothing alter the code. That is how functional component and class component works. Those two things are really important, but for me, I make use of functional component a lot. I do make use of functional component a lot. So are we doing our course of learning? You might see some, oh, I don't think this thing is good in class component, this one is good in functional component. They are both useful in all cases. So now let's deal with React class components. Class components are only way to track state. Now we are still going to talk about state and life cycle when we are about to learn React hooks, because this in addition, React hooks will help us a lot, because there are some things that can be run on class components and will not work on functional components. But due to the help of React hooks, it makes life easier for us to run some state, for us to make use of state in React function. Before, you cannot run state in React function. So with the help of hooks, you can do that. So you get to know more better. So you can see the way they create a class component here by having a class extend render I am a car owner, so etc. So that is how to deal with React component. And there is another one which you have as a constructor. They call it React constructor. So if we want to deal with React constructor, okay, should I do it here? Okay, when I think constructor is good when I'm talking about props. So when I'm dealing with props, I'll come back to React constructor. So that it will be clear to you how constructors and how props are being related. So now, if we want to deal with different files, we can create multiple files here and also add it to our work. Like this compo now, if I want to create another one, I can decide to create another component and name it pp. Let me name this one pp because I'm talking about props next. pp.js. I can use js, I can use jsx. So let me use a functional component now. Let me use this to export it outside. So now I created another file here. If I want to use it inside or under this place, I will just have to import it like this. So it's going to have it like this. So inside here, I can use that pp. I can use that pp. Then once I check my results, my UI here, I should have the value for the pp here. So you can keep on. That is the essence of using components in React. It helps you to itemize your work so that you are not going to have any issues. So now let's now deal with the first thing we want to deal with now is we are dealing with the React props. How do we deal with props? Props is a shortcut in React called properties. So, and we use it to pass components. We use the pass component from the parents to the children. Like if you want to, like this one, I can see that I can see something here now that if you look at this particular one now, I'm passing something from this compo here to this app.js so that everybody can see it. But now you might have some data, some specific informations in which you want to pass. So we have to make use of something called props, and which is called property. We use it to pass informations, pass data, pass arguments from one place, from parent to child. The parent is the one that is sending the information to the child, to where you are passing it to. So let me do a simple example of how to pass a data from a parent to this. So let me take away all this. I will make sure my work is cleaner in everything I'm doing. So in some cases I might be taking some away. Now here I want to deal with props under this pp. Now this is an information. Now this is a file, which is the app.js. Let me create a variable at the top called const. Let me give it a brown name, and let me call it my name, which is Victor. Now I want to pass this Victor to this pp, to this app.js. How do I do that? This is the pp here. I need to include it inside the file name. This is the file that is displaying, that is coming from this place. But here now I only have the pp to show. I don't have anything to show. What I will now do is I will now come to this place and say the name I want to use. Maybe I can call it my name will now equals to something like this. It's going to equals to the brand name. That is, I want to pass this Victor to this pp here. Now how do I now pass it? I've been able to define it here, which is from the parent. I've been able to define it here, which is from the parent. I define it at the top to be called brand equals to Vic, and I've passed it inside this file called pp. So it's now for me to display it here on where I want to put it. So the first thing I will do is I'm going to include the property here, that is props. I'm only passing a single data. I'll put it here as props. Then inside this place where I'm passing it to, I can say let me create an h1 and say hello, I'm passing my name. I'm passing my name. I'm passing my name here. So if you want to write JavaScript in HTML here, you have to use this code. You have to use this for you to write it inside here. So if I want to write it here now, I will now put this and I'll say props dot. What did I use to pass it? I pass it with where is my app.js? Let me cancel this one. I don't need it again. I want my work to be straightforward. My name. So I'll now pass it with what? My name. My name. So with the aid of this, I've been able to pass this pp. I've been able to pass this Victor from this place to this particular one. So if I check, you can see, hello, I'm passing my name here, Victor. So if you want to write addition and subtraction, if you want to do anything inside this HTML, just know that you have to use this curly bracket. If I might forget to say it, I can do addition and subtraction inside it. 2 plus 2, so I'm expected to have 4. So don't forget, that is how to write it. So now if I keep on reusing this particular one, I'll keep on seeing same thing. You can see I'll keep on seeing same thing as a property. Let me cancel this component, class component. I've talked about the component. I've talked about the component and the functions, how to make use of them. So anytime I want to make use of it, I will keep on using it this way. So I can pass so many things. I can pass any other data from this property. That is why you can see React props are like function arguments in JavaScript and attribute in HTML. To send props into a component, use the syntax below. So we use this form to send it, and to receive it, when you want to receive it, anywhere you want to receive it, you start with props. So if you want to send it, you send it with this. So if you want to have it, you have it with that. So if you look at it here now, the way I pass it from this my app.js, I send it through this place like this, and I receive it with props. As soon as I fail to add these props, I will not see anything. So that is how it works in passing data using props. So we can do more of that by passing other informations. Now let's now deal with, if possible, we now have a list of items, maybe an array or something like that you want to pass. Maybe you want to pass a set of an array, you want to pass a list of items, and how do you deal with passing such data into it? So for us to do that, we have to make use of same thing, the same process of how we pass data. So let's deal with it this way. Let me pass a list of items now, so we can see how it's going to work. So using this one, I can make use of some other ways. In order to pass it. So what I want to do now is, I want to pass some list of items, maybe a lot of informations. So I'll pass it now, then we are going to see how it works. So now let me deal with it this way. Let me come to this my app.js. Let me take away most of this now. Okay, let me still leave this. Okay, let me create another constant called char_info. When you are writing in JavaScript or React, the next letter, the next word should always be in camel case. Let me have a list of objects like this. Let me create an object like this. I have name equals to Benz. Let me have model. Let me see year 2025. Now let's assume I want to pass this one, and for me to pass it now, I've created this car. Then if I want to pass it inside it here, if I want to pass it, so let me create another file to pass this. Let me create it to be pp2 pp2.jxs pp2.jx. So let me use a class component here. Let me use a functional component. I don't really like using this class component. It's always too much when I'm looking at it. So class component is always minimal. So here now, I want to pass this pp2 inside this my app.js. So I'm going to come under here and say pp2 here. Then let me give it a name of cars. I will name it equals to car info, the name at the top here. So it's going to refer to car info. Now I want to pass this particular one inside here. So what am I expected to do in other place where I pass it from? So if I want to come to this place now, I'll just have to say props and mention, let me just write it directly and say car. Okay, I'll just say props dot what did I use to pass it? Cars. I think it's, what name did I use? So this one can be any name, cars. So I pass it with what? Cars. So if I check, I'm having an error. Yeah, no. Oh, do I need to even pass it here again? Then let me check. I can see cars dot name. I want to see the error I'm having. Now you can see now I have my Benz. So since I pass it directly, let me wrap it in h1, so it will be bigger. So let me wrap everything inside h1. So now I have my Benz. Because how do I pass it now? I make use of come to this place. I created a list of items which I have an object, the key and the value, So now once I pass it into the PPL here, I have to come to this place and make use of props dot cars, then dot the name. So if I change this one to model now, so I should see the year 2025. You can see it's there already. So that is how we can pass a list of items. Now the last one which I want to talk about concerning these props is probably when we have a constructor. If we have a constructor, let me see, passing data. Okay, that's the end. So if we are able to pass a list of items and we are able to pass other things. So what about if we have a constructor? How do we deal with that? Dealing with a constructor is just adding, instead of using instead of using some of these things, we can easily use a constructor and a super constructor in order to call it here. So if we want to do that, we can have it in this form. Okay, let me use this PPL2. Let me try using RCC. So I want to use this, or let me just try to run it inside this my app.js. Let me try to run it inside this my app.js directly and see what I'm going to have. Let's assume I want to make use of a super constructor in what I'm doing here. This super constructor, I think it will be good for me to use it in this particular page alone. So I'll pass it from one place to another and I'll be able to review it. I don't know. So let me take away all this and RCC. So now I can import some things here like this constructor here. So inside this component, I'm going to have a constructor. The constructor is going to hold the super constructor. This one is not really needed because a lot of people don't use it. Super. So inside this super, we are going to have one thing I don't really like is I don't like the note should be always much. This does state equals to. This is another way in which you can use to pass data. I can say color equals to red. You can set it to be red. So from here you can set it to red. So once we have it like this, inside this place which we have it, I can decide to call it out inside this div and say this. Don't let me even bother myself with this. I can say this hello. I can say hello. I can say this dot state dot color. Some people have taken away most of everything that I have here, so I only want to make use of this constructor and super constructor in order to run it out. So if I have it this way and I try to check, you can see I have hello red because this is what I have here. So if I wrap this in h1 tag, which is going to show very well, so this is h1 tag hello red. So instead for some people to be using that list of items I wrote in the other place, you can decide to use a constructor. So you can decide to create more constructor like name, Vic, email. Some people make use of it all depends, different ways and different approach. Vic at Gmail. So let me just stop here. So if I want to access the name now, say this state dot name, and once I come to this place, oh, it's showing me some error. Okay, it doesn't have a key, so I need to add a key to it before it could work. We are still going to do something based on keys and mapping, so I want the project to always follow each other, so I don't want to start saying something different. So if I take away all this one, it will still work for the Vic alone. You can see the Vic is there. So how to add multiple, I think instead of that one, undo, I want to test something. I think this one should be common. Let me test. This thing I've added another thing for me. Oh, and I did not send you all this. Okay, well, that is actually how to make use of. Let me change it back to a functional component, because for other components we used to have for functional components the code is always simple, and for class components you still have extend something class, something like that. So that is why I don't really like it. So that is all about these props which we have. Now the next thing I want to talk about is event. How do we undo events in React? So events are like, oh, you want it to listen to something when a button is clicked, when an action is taken, when a mouse over something, when a mouse click on something. How do we undo it? Now you can see React events are written in camel case. That is, you make use of this one, not this one. So not that you want to write it, you have to put on click like this. You have to make use of this on click. Every word should always start with a capital letter. So that is how to undo. That is how to undo. That is how to undo events in React. So you can see once you use this, there is going to print out some other informations which is necessary for you to make use of. So now let's now take a look at a simple example of how to make use of it in our React. So let's do a little on click button so we can have something like that to talk about. So now here, let me create a button. The button, let me say take a shoot. So inside this place where I want it to, if I check this now, I will not see anything special than the button take a shoot. So if I click on it, it's not listening to anything. So and it has to listen to something. Okay, coming. You're in charge. So and you have to listen to something. So that is why we have to add that is how we need to add an on-click event to it so it can listen to something. So let me copy this one, this shoot. Let me copy this thing and have it in my what am I? So let me so let me leave space. So now I've created on click to shoot, but now if I try to click on it, okay, I've done something, said shoot is not divine. So I need to add a function for this shoot in order to work. So for me to do that, I need to add the functions to it. How do we add a function? So I will have to create a functional component for shoot. That is, I want to define it at the top, like shoot. Instead of using that my function, you can make use of this functional component. It's also the same thing like writing a functional component. Shoot equals to this. Then I want it to alert me of a letter, which is A. So I can pass this argument inside this function too. When you have two brackets like this, it's more or less you are having a function. So once I have it like this, if I check, the error is gone, and I click on it, you can see it alerts me okay. So objects, and I'm expecting it to pass A. Okay, let me pass a string inside it and say hello. Let's see. I'm expecting to have hello. Now you can see, because it is an object, it's not seeing it as anything. It's supposed to see it as a word. So after passing it, now it's seeing it as hello word. So now that is how to make use of it. We can add actions to a button. It makes us add actions to button, add a lot of things, and you can trigger. Now if you want to have multiple things like that, you can create another function here at the top, then you call your function inside this place to display it. So if you look at it, we have passing argument in a function. So they can also use it to pass argument like A, then it's going to print out the value for us. So we also have adding type. This one, it doesn't it's not something that you really do like that, because we have a normal way of adding our event. So adding object to event is just a normal things. The only thing, you just have to separate it. One is for this and the other one is for that. Then once you write the line of code, it's going to work. So it's not something hard. Let me copy this line of code for you, and so we have it inside. This is our shoot. We are creating a function inside this place. We want to create an event for shoot. So we have this to be like this: event equals to shoot.goes.event. So once we have it like this, and we come to this place, we define the shoot to be this. We define it like this. So once we define it, we can easily render it with this our function here. We are creating another function entirely, so we can easily call the function here, and we'll make use of it. So, and it's going to work for us. So we have to deal with another one, which we have to deal with is conditional rendering. Conditional rendering is more or less like if an option does not work, the second one should work. Like, okay, if me am older than you, say yes, or else say no. That is like using an if statement in rendering React. So if you have a conditional rendering, that maybe you want to use an if statement, how to make use of it. There are 3 ways in which they used to make use of it in React, and it is very important we have to talk about the 3, because they are normal routine in life in which we will be making use of this thing very well. So that is why it is important. So now, if I decided to create a function for Miss Go, I decided to create a function for Made Go, and I can now create a function that, okay, if the boy is a go, it should tell us this. If it's not a go, it should tell us that. So let's test that, right? Let's see how it works. So now let me use one of these. Okay, let me take away this one. Let me use these other ones to test it out. Let me use other ones to test it out. So now I will write my function here. I will divide my function here. I don't want this my app.js to be full, so let me divide my function here, then I will call it there. So if I try it here and it doesn't work, I'll come and try it in my app.js because I believe it should work. So now let me first of all define for miss go and go. So instead for me typing, since this is our the tools we are using, so let's just copy this miss go, and so you always put it at the top to define it first before you make use of it inside this particular place. So the first one is miss go, that is, if a person miss go, it should return miss, and if the person made a go, it should return go. Now the other function here is to define, okay, if it is a go, you should do this. If it's not a go, you should not do this. So that is how it's going to work. So let me even define, okay, I have this as, let me copy this. So now the third one now is now to add an action to it, which is go. Now this go, what is it saying here is that go, and we are passing a props. So inside it we create a constant equals to is go. So we are using props to pass it. So if is go, return made go, then else it should return is not a go. So that is what we are doing. So if is a go, it's going to tell us that, oh, it made go. If it's not a go, it's going to tell us that it's not a go. So we have defined the function. Now the first thing we did is we defined for go, which is we have created the function for go at the top. For go, which is this one, we created another function for miss go. So we now have to create another one that is going to tell us that, okay, if it's a go, it should give us this one, and if not, instead of adding else the way we used to add else in JavaScript, you just put your return the other statement. So now in this my component here, what I will now return here is, I will now return go. That is, I want it to perform the function of go, because the function now is this go I want to run now. So this go that I want to run, let me use a self-closing tag. Inside this go now, I will now add the condition is go, which is the constant we create. We can set it to, let's set it to true. So inside this place, I've defined everything here. Let me come to my app.js, import it, so I should be able to see all what I've done. pp2, then let me say, okay, so if I check it, you can see we have it to be go. So now it points out what I've done is, the first thing is I created the functions for miss go, I created another one for go. So now in this place I create a conditional statement with a function. that is const equals to is go, I define it. So is this go, is like creating another function like the other two. Is go, return made go, and the other one is not go. So is go now, I set it to true. So if I set it to false here now, if I set it to false here, I say miss. So that is how we can use it to render conditional statement. Now that is a way of which we can really render, okay, I'm done with this event. So that is the way we can really render functions or any other thing. There is, we can also make use of this logic too as well, in order to render. We can also make use of this logic to render this same one we want to render. So but for us to use that one, the one of the issue we have is that there are always different ways to solve the particular problem. So it now depends on the way you want to use your best practice to solve that issue. That is just it. And the way you want your code to be clean. For me, I don't really always use all other things aside from the cleaner ones, that I know that okay, if I run it this way, I'm going to have a nice thing to see. So we can also use this logic to pass it. Like we just copy a particular length. We can use it to render two other operations that we have. So there is this one, this ternary is really good. This one serves as the same thing, but a lot of people don't really use this logic except you really need it. But the first one and this ternary is always used all the time. Like the first one, which is using the if statement, it is cool, nice looking. And this ternary, if you look at it, it is just too much, writing and equals to all these kind of things. And this other one, which is ternary operator, it is always, it is the, I can't say it's the best, but a lot of developers use it because it reduces thousands of lines of code. Another way for conditional rendering elements using ternary operator. So that is a nice one to talk about. And because if you really want to learn and you want to be using it, this one is part of the things in which you'll be making use of. Ternary is just the best. Like a lot of people use it a lot. So this is just what I will just change. I'm going to reduce this line of code here using ternary. So instead of using this if statement here, I want to convert it to ternary. So I will say function equals to go props. How do I start it? Goes. Then let me now return. Let me put the return statement here. So in front of this return statement, I'm going to use this our arbitrary stuff. So inside here now, I've defined it to be is go. Instead of using that particular one, I will just say is go is what the first one is let me look up, how do I use it? Okay, is go is what this function I have here, made go. So I'm going to close the tag. No, let me use a self-closing tag. I don't need all this one. I don't want my code to be much. self closing tag, then, or like if this one is not available, then you just this symbol, instead of writing that if statement that is much, just ordinary this colon bracket, then you have your what, miss go. So once we have it like this, we can see that this thing will not even alter our code at all. It will not even alter our code. We still have the right thing that we have here. So we still have it to be missed. So if I change this one to true, if I change it to true, so I still have it to be go. That is why I said the if statement and the ternary operator is always good to use. The only difference that we have there is that instead of writing all these stories, you just use your ternary operator, which is the colon, to separate it. So that is how to make use of that one. So the next one is list. We are going to have, this is where we are going to learn how to make use of key, which I said I don't want to skip. I don't want to jump to that place the other time. So we are going to make use of key and maps, but majorly in JavaScript we make use of maps in array to generally perform, like this, to loop over a particular list of items. If you have a lot of things on your list, you make use of that to to loop over it one after the other. So we can go back to this our project. They started using this one, and they had a list of informations, and they want to loop over it. So let's start this way. Let me come back to this my project, and I'm going to have a list which I'm going to render. So after rendering that list, I'll be able to make use of it. Let me test it in my this page directly in my app.js in order to view it. So let me create a function. Called garage, or let me show you one called terminal. I don't know, is terminal not a reserved word? Or let me use junction. I'm going to create a function called junction. So in the junction, we are going to have different list of motors or cars in there. Just hold on. Okay, I've connected this thing. Okay. Just hold on. I will have finished this thing before putting it. Okay, let me just continue with what I'm doing first before I connect it back. So I'll stop this one, continue with the rest. Okay, so let me create our junction. Oh god, it was because I connect this thing to the internet. That is why. Okay, so let me hold on a little bit. So junction. So I want to create a function for junction. My this thing is gone. So let me open my VS Code back. I will have finished this class before I should have finished this section before I connect it to the internet. Just hold on. So I believe you should try to download this Git batch so you too can be making use of it. I think I've explained. I can still take you through how to make use of Git bash in order to open your VS Code. So once you just have it, you just type code and you put dot in front of it, then it will open your VS Code for you. So okay, my VS Code is opening. So now I want to make use of Junction to create a list. So I will now loop over those lists using the map function, so we can understand what I mean. So at least I'm back. Okay, junction, then in front of it I want to define my function. So let me create a list inside it and I call it cars. You can see Benz. Press anything. You can see BMW. I can see Corolla. So this one has to be comma. So let me just use that too. So now then I want it to return. So I want it to return this. So what I want it to return is we're going to have H1. I want it to return H1 cars at junctions. So inside this place, under it, so let me now give a list of items. So I want it to list it out for me. So for it to list it out, I will now write my JavaScript code inside it. That's going to be cars, this one dot map, that it should map through it. And I'm going to create a function inside it. The first one is going to be, I can give it all cars. So I'm going to add index to it. This index will just work as if, because I'm not giving it an ID. So I want it to be like an index, just to give it an ID. So it's going to work one after the other. Then inside it I will now create my function out of it. So it's going to have the list of the car here. So inside this place, so I'll now add key to it. The key will now equals to the index. That index, and we are going to call the all cars here. So now look at this function I created here in this my app.js. I create a function for junction, I create a list, and I just create this header it doesn't need. So this is where I want my map, so that is this car, it should map through all the cars we have here. You should give it an index number, then the key is always an index, and it should display all cars. So inside this my function here now, I can now come to this place and say, oh, I want to use those cars. I will now give it the function name here. I will just give it I will just call the function name here, which is junction, because it was junction is the name I created. So since I have it like this, I can easily see it's going to loop over everything one after the other. It's going to loop over everything one after the other, and it's going to provide it for me. You can see car at junction, Benz, BMW, Corolla. So that is how we used to make use of it. So now if you look at it now, you can create multiple functions. I can create another one, but this one I'm doing it inside app.js. I can also do it inside other pages. So once you have it in other pages, you just have to, the way we used to do this app dot something like that. So the way I define everything here, after defining it, I just come to this place to run it. So it's always cool. If you see that your app.js is getting cumbersome, you can just move it out and go and create a separate file for it. So that is how we deal with our maps in that's how we deal with list in React. So we can also, you can see that I already have keys to it. Now let's assume that I want to, like this one now, this one they have already, you know that this one is not having, you can see this one now, this one is having an ID, and the ID is unique. This one is 1, 2, 3, something like that. So let me copy this thing and let's test this one that have ID out. So inside this one that have ID, instead for me to have this one here, how did I copy it? Let me see first. Okay, I'll put it inside that. Okay, so I'll just take away this one. So I'll put it here. Now you can see that this one is having an ID, so it doesn't need an index. I will have to remove an index. I only have all cars signed. Instead of having index here, I think it's just ID. I will have ID. So once I have the ID, we can easily access it one after. You can easily access everything. So it's going to print them out with their ID. You can see, hey, ID is not defined. Line 15 to 20. Okay, what have I done? The ID is 1. Line 15 to 25. Okay, maybe probably I have to call the ID is not defined. How can I solve this particular one? I'm coming. I'm coming. I think the key but I'm rendering the correct one. I think instead of, let me change this one. ID equals to ID. ID is not defined in app.js. Do I need to define the ID in another place? Do I need to define the ID in another place? I don't think so. This is the proper way I should define it, but I don't know. I will see to this one. I will talk about it in my next something. I will not cancel it because I think this should be how to call how to define an ID. Is either we use ID equals to ID, so you're going to know that okay, we want to print. Or what I'm thinking is that when I use this ID equals to ID, I have to I think I have to change. Let me test something before. Cars, and this one too will be cars. ID is not defined. Okay, let me continue. I think that's the last thing I want to talk about rendering. I will not leave this page. I will start from the next one I want to do. The next video I will start from this place because I don't want to on internet to this. So we can easily render it through key equals to car dot id. Okay, let me use this their own. Okay, let me use this their own. Key equals to car dot id. That's true, but there's a way we used to run it with this equals to ids. Let me check. Car is not defined. Okay, car is not defined. Sorry, it is cars that we have. I define it as cars. Object of a child. So inside this place, I'll say brand equals to brand equals to garage. So my own will now be I don't know. Now say, let me tell this. Cars equals dot brand. I'm trying to yes, it's not working. It's not working. So this place, if I use the key, I have to add cars.id so that it's going to start from this place and get the ID. So if I want to print it out, I will now use cars.brand before it can print out all the whole information for me. I think I'm good to go now. So that one is sorted. So the last one concerning this part is the form. How we submit a form. There's, no matter the condition, you are going to have a form to submit. So how do we deal with form submissions, and how do our form listen to what we want to do. So let me create a new file folder, call it my form. .jsx so, and let me use a functional component. Then inside this place, let me create a form like this. Let me create this form. So I have this form now. I can import it here at the top. My work is now getting import my form. That's this. So if I try to check if I try to run it here now, you can see I have a form now. You can see we have the form now that we can type both numbers and every other character. So how do we undo this form is what is important. So undoing form is about how you undo the data when it change value to get the submissions. But in order for us to get the value, we used to make use of something called state. So inside that state, when they type, we are going to use a use state in order to get it. So once you use a use state, it's going to grab the changes that we have inside the form. So it is best explained when I'm talking about this React hooks. So once I start React hooks, we are going to deal with this form properly. So I would like to stop this one for here. Then I'm going to create another one to talk about router memo styling. So after that, I'm going to build a project. Then I talk about the React hooks, because you see these React hooks, the React hook is very, very important and essential to all of our functions about React. You can see after the React hook, they have React exercise that you can just practice. So if you're able to understand these React hooks, you'll be able to build more projects, because all these use state and every other things, they are function of React hooks. So that is why I will not be talking about it here. Just